Greetings one and all. Super Fridays here in the Holy Land, the holy city of Elon Moreh Shechem, the holy synagogue, Od Yosef Chai. We are on the 16th day of the month of ER 5784. Wanted to go over our standard rules here. The class is for the sake of heaven, to remove the divine presence from the exile, to improve ourselves one small step, and also gratitude. Gratitude to the host of our channel, Mike, doing great things in north and south of Israel, saving a lot of lives. And also to the great blog, Tomer Devora, check it out, puts out these classes and gets them out, and tremendous amount of reward. And you, dear friends, also, these past two classes and this class, I look at them as the most important. Perhaps we could save even one person, and one Jew is like an entire world. So get it out, get the word out, share it, think, put on your thinking cap. How can I get this class? How can I get this message? This message is not heard. The message of the Greenblatts, everything's going to be all right. Yeah, reminds of us a song. No. Okay, in our last class, we spoke about the tremendous words of the book Seder Adorot, written some 300 years ago, quoting an amazing story how Ezra, the scribe of Israel, at the end of the exile, the Babylonian exile 2,000 years ago, he came to sent messages to various communities to return to the land of Israel. The exile is over. And in Worms, in Germany, they kind of flipped him off and said, you continue in the great Jerusalem, we'll continue in our little Jerusalem. And therefore, throughout history, the major tragedies that have happened, befallen the Jewish people, have been from Germany. Continuing on that note, we have Rabbi Yehuda Halevi in his classical work, Sefer HaKuzari. You have shamed me, King of Khazars, for the divine presence was prepared to descend upon the world as in the beginning. Had all the Jews agreed to return to the land of Israel with a willing heart, but only some returned, and their leaders remained in Babylonia, desiring the exile and their work and labor in order not to be separated from their homes and affairs. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi goes on and talks about the so-called religious Jews who speak in their prayers about returning to Jerusalem, and he calls their prayers like the chirps, the sounds of a parrot, which means, yes, they are mimicking words, but their heart is nowhere to be found. They're parroting the words. Next year in Jerusalem, when they plan to be not only next year not in Jerusalem, but for their lifetime. Moving right along. Were there warnings to us, to the Jewish people, in the previous generation, in the Holocaust generation? Were there those that warned, that pulled out the trumpets of battle and warned us? Yes, there were. Number one, in the 1930s, Zev Jabotinsky, an amazing man, an amazing leader, set up defense forces for the Jews, began setting up army units for the British Army. Listen to his words in the 30s. Get yourself moving, Jews. Get moving. There is no time. A fire is burning. Get out. Liquidate the exile before it liquidates you. Thus the name of our class. Liquidate the exile before it liquidates you. What was the reaction to Zev Jabotinsky, a famous, world-renowned European Yiddish writer who joined the chorus of Jewish intellectuals and community leaders in condemning and ostracizing Jabotinsky? His name was Shalom Ash. Woe to a nation that has alarmists and hysterical leaders as these. Shalom Ash, 1936. Let's fast forward. 16 years later. 6 million Jews later. 16 years later. Speaking at a press conference in Jerusalem in 1952, I deeply regret that I fought against the evacuation plan of Zev Jabotinsky. I deeply regret. 6 million Jews later. The first head of Agudat Yisrael, Rabbi Isaac Meir Levine. Listen to his words. He was an amazing man. Golda Meir, he was in the first Knesset in 1948. Golda Meir says that when when Isaac Meir would speak at the podium of the Knesset, she would have thoughts of repentance. This guy was amazing. He was a powerhouse. All-star. Golda Meir. About Isaac Meir Levine. Listen to his words. Had we then, 35 years ago, that was 1912, when Agudat Yisrael was established, when we laid the foundations of Agudat Yisrael, which is a religious organization, today also political, in, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, in Katowice. In 1912, when we laid our roots and foundations in Europe, if we had resolved to take root in the land of Israel, it is possible that many would have been saved from the terrible Holocaust. This was right after World War II at Agudat Yisrael's 35th convention held in Tel Aviv. Abanim, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yisachar Teichtel. On page 22, he tells us the following. If we would have encouraged Jews in Europe 40 years ago, he's writing this in the 1940s, in the early 1940s. So he's talking about 1900. If we would have encouraged Jews in Europe 40 and 50 years ago to settle in the land of Israel, thousands of Jews would have been saved. This is amazing. You have the leader of Agudat Yisrael taking responsibility for not sounding the alarm. We have the Emabanim Smecha, Rav Yisachar Teichtel, who was murdered in the Holocaust. The same message. Batting fourth, so we have Jabotinsky. We have Rabbi Isaac Meir Levin. We have Emabanim Smecha. Last but not least, the Rabbi of Jerusalem, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zunenfeld, who happened, in parentheses, who happened to help in the saving and hiding of my great-grandfather, who had defended two Jews that were being beaten and succeeded in killing one of the Arab attackers, but was forced to hide out. One of the places my great-grandfather hid in Jerusalem was at the home of Rabbi Zunenfeld, the rabbi of Jerusalem. Listen to his words. In his book of him, A Man on the Wall. Where is the religious community? Cannot they see this is a sign from God? Rabbi Zunenfeld was talking to the religious community after the San Remo conference, which recognized the right of the Jewish people to a homeland in Israel in 1920, April of 1920. Where is the religious community? Next, the religious community must come live in the land of Israel. How many times have I told the Haredim, the very religious, anyone with means has to move to the land of Israel. And anyone who has the means but does not move to the land of Israel will pay the price on the day of judgment. Harsh words from Rabbi Zunenfeld for those that are able. Folks, if we think, my mom in the early 50s came to volunteer in Israel with the new immigrants from North Africa. She tells me about the conditions that people lived. Folks, it's a joke to think about the average American Jew and the monetary assets that they have at their disposal and compare that to Jews 70 years ago. People in Israel are able to make it. There are millions of Jews that somehow make it. Religious Jews. They struggle, yes, but they make it. Also, our brothers and sisters outside the land of Israel. You too can make it here. In 1931, the warning of Rav Zunenfeld, listen to this, 1931, a group of dignitaries from Europe visited Rabbi Zunenfeld in Jerusalem. He told them, and I quote, "Tell all the Jews back in Europe, close your businesses and come to the land of Israel." A warning of Rabbi Zunenfeld in 1931. Who paid attention? Who packed their bags? 4 giants. Zev Jabotinsky, the head of Agudat Yisrael, Rabbi Levin, Rabbi Isaac Meir Levin. Number 3, Rabbi Yisachar Teichtel, Ema Barim Smecha. Number 4, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zunenfeld. Dearest friends, so far in our first class, we hope all the classes are first class, but you get the meaning. In our first class, we brought down statistics starting in 2021, 2022, and now 2023. And this was even before what we've seen in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. It's totally whacked out. Our third part, we looked at the Torah view. After the statistics, the Torah view. Now, statistics. A troubled America, troubled Europe. A land in crisis, America. How many diseases every day? And as the days go by, that cancer settles in, comes harder to remove. Let's look. Some of the headlines. Could spend days on each subject. Social upheaval. Spikes in crime all over the states. The economic situation in America, and we're not talking about the 1% that are doing well. The moral fiber of society. Immigration policies, millions streaming in to America, changing the fabric of America. I hope I get this one right. The LGBTQIA2S+. I ain't giving you what it stands for. But I ain't kidding. Yes, we're up to, it used to be L and then G and then it went on, but it's really getting out of control. Next, a land in crisis, lack of belief in democracy, various polls that show a lack of belief in democracy, a disbelief in government, in leadership, progressivism, wokeness, political turmoil, distrust. And they have a new one. It's called DEI. Yeah, it's all over the place. DEI. What does it stand for? Okay, diversity, inequity, and what's the last one? Inclusion. Yes. I like to call it DEI. It's helping. Unfortunately, it's helping America die. The American nation die. DIE, I like to call it. Or, I saw a great line, I don't know by who, but the DEI stands for didn't earn it. That's a great one. DEI, it's this new phenomena of people that are getting all types of passes and scholarships and jobs, and they just DEI, didn't earn it. Yeah, I love that one. If that is all not bad enough, if that's not all a nightmare, it gets worse. Projection. Jews and Muslims in the next 25 years in America. Frightening. I read you from a relatively recent Pew, P-E-W study. In North America, the Jewish population is projected to decline both in total numbers, 6 million in 2010 to 5.9 million in 2050. And as a share of the region's population, the Jews will decline from 1.8% in 2010 to 1.4% in 25 years in 2050. Next. The Muslims are projected to become the second largest religious group in the U.S. by 2040, 15 years. Amid continued growth fueled by high fertility rates and immigration, according to new estimates by the Pew Research Center. By 2050, Muslims are expected to constitute 2.1% of the total U.S. population. That's 8.1 million people by 2050 will be Muslims. Remember, Jews will only be 5.9 million people. As the Muslim population increases, the U.S. will have to come to terms with the reality that Islam is an important part of the country's fabric, said Ihsan Bagbai, an associate professor of Islamic studies at the University of Kentucky and a member of the advisory board for Pew's 2017 survey, it was 7 years ago, on Muslim Americans. Another key driver of growth among Muslim Americans is higher fertility rates, in part due to the group's youth. Pew's 2017 found that 35% of respondents were between the ages of 18 to 29. Muslims tend to be a fairly young population both globally and in the United States. So most of the women still have childbearing years ahead of them. Okay. So we have all of these turmoil, the crisis that is taking place in America. Each one, as I said, each one could speak about for weeks. But for those that live, I'm sure you're familiar. If not, look them up. Next, the college campuses. There's been a tremendous decline over the last couple of years of Jewish students because of this DEI policies and other such, which allow third-rate students in instead of those that really deserve it. The rates in most top Ivy League schools of Jews have gone down tremendously. This is the face of the next generation. This is frightening. Folks, I'm not going to get into it, but I heard an unbelievable program. A commentator was explaining the differences between the college campuses protests in the 1960s against the war in Vietnam. This is child's play. The war in Vietnam, those demonstrations were child play due to social media. They didn't have anything back in it. Think about that. 1960s. Okay, we're talking about 60 years ago. 60 years ago. Today, within seconds, it's all over the world. This is frightening. We have, look, I was looking today in the Drudge report. They have one after another. A Jew injured in Italy. When they found out that he was Jewish, they asked him, "Are you Israeli or Jewish?" And he said, "I'm both." Well, they threw a metal bar at him. They kicked him. They punched him out. There's articles about how the left wing and the right wing in the world are coming together now. The right-wing extremists and the left wing are coming together with their wave of Jewish hatred. This is an amazing thing. The Jews are perhaps not united amongst themselves, but they're doing a damn good job of uniting the world against them. This is the face of the next generation. Look at these students. Look at these demonstrations. Look at these anti-Semites. Today, these elements, these organizations, right and left, are able to spread the hate like never before in history. This is the most frightening time ever. Social media, internet, spreading the hate, spreading the jealousy to millions and millions of people. Frightening. Look at these so-called stars, actors, media personalities. They have millions of followers. And look at their messages against Israel, against Jews. We'll name a few of them. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Kanye West, Kyrie Irving, Elon Musk just allowed a couple of weeks ago the Nazi supporter Nick Fuentes, a orator of genocide against the Jewish people, black and white, allowed him on his platform, the X, formerly Twitter. Folks, we've spoke in the last couple of weeks, early detection. Have we recognized the face of Lavan? Just like Jacob recognized at the beginning stages, at the early stages, when we could do something about it, when we could remove ourselves from the exiles. Early detection. What category do we fall in? Are we going to wait for the furious face of Lavan, the furious face of the nations, when it will be too late? Who is wise, our sages ask? Those that see the future, those that are able to discern the winds of change. I want to read you a tragic letter from a great friend of mine. Read this. I read this and I weep. A friend of mine for many, many years, lives in the States, is a Jewish activist, a professor, a real intelligent person, right wing. I wrote him some months ago. He lives in America. I wrote him, what do you think about the recent wave? This was after October 7th, after Simchat Torah war. What do you think about the wave of Jewish hatred? Is it serious or is it a passing phase? Months ago I wrote, listen to his answer. This is a person that understands. This is not a blind soul. But this is a person that has spent too much time, has become comfortable outside the land of Israel. A person who does not want to see reality for what it is. Listen to his words. Probably 99% of Jews in America have never personally experienced anti-Semitism. I know I haven't. I think even the vast majority of visibly identifiable Jews like Hasidim in Williamsburg haven't experienced it. Folks, go back to the first class. I brought down the statistics. 2021, 2022, all record-setting years. 2023, broke them all. Totaled all two together. Go back on those statistics. Go back how the Jewish people, the feeling amongst Jewish people of fright, of fear. for any noticeable number of Jews here to seriously consider leaving the U.S., whether to go to Israel or somewhere else, there would have to be a government policy of persecuting Jews. Right now, all they're seeing is somebody else's kids feeling a little scared on some college campuses. Can you believe this? This he wrote to me maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago. Got that? All they're seeing is somebody else's kid on some college campus is a little scared. Oh my God, did you see that girl in UCLA? Concussion? Unconscious? All the Jews that were attacked? He is not able to go out and see the early detection. He's not able to catch the facial expression of the nations. They have changed. Folks, the ark, there is a flood of Jewish hatred all over the world. Sights that we have not seen for many, many, many decades. The ark is the land of Israel. But Yehuda, you had your October 7, 1,200 Jews were murdered. True. Yes. 1,200 Jews were murdered. Is Israel safe? Here's my answer, my humble answer, dear friends. There were tremendous, along with the calamities, the tragedies, the massacre, yes. There were tremendous miracles on Simchat Torah. The plan was to have a simultaneously attack from the north, Hezbollah, from the south, Hamas, from Yemen, to attack the people of Israel. God forbid, I don't want to say what could have been on that day, Simchat Torah, October 7th. But God, in a tremendous, perhaps the greatest of all miracles, on that day, along with the tragedy, with the sorrow for sure, no one's minimizing it. But we have to look at the bigger picture. Folks, always differentiate between governments, between the upper echelons, whether it's military, whether it's political, and the masses, the nation of Israel. Totally different. There is no place in the world that I feel safer, that is safer than the land of Israel. It is the ark for the Jewish people. Can we not see that in the last 70, 80 years, God is closing the gates of all places where Jews used to live? God is closing down the exiles, one after another, North Africa, in Russia, in Europe, all over. Can we not tell the direction the world has been traveling? The Jewish people? Clear as day. Israel, very, very shortly, has the majority of the Jewish people will be in the land of Israel. Very simple. God did not close down the nations, the countries of the world to the Jewish people and have them come to the land of Israel in order to drive them back to their places of origin. There is no place safer than the land of Israel. Recently, I saw a statistic that in the last 6 months, 4,000 Arab terrorists have been captured in Judea and Samaria. Amazing. 4,000, hundreds of them, 500 I think, have been killed. Here, it is a land that God protects, as it says in Deuteronomy. So to speak, the eyes of God. God's divine protection is from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Here we have protection. We have tremendous warriors, tremendous soldiers, tremendous amount of self-sacrifice for the Jewish people, for Torah, for the nation of Israel. Amazing. Like no other place in the world. There is no safer place than the land of Israel. Don't forget the words of the Chafetz Chaim when he was asked about the rise of Hitler. Where will the refugee be? And the Chafetz Chaim's reply was, the refugee will be in Zion. And when you enter in Bnei Brak, the yeshiva of Panovich, set up by a student of the Chafetz Chaim, Rav Kahanaman, it has the verse on the wall that the refugee will be in the land of Israel. God is closing down what we see on the news, what we see in our neighborhoods. God is closing the gates of exile for the Jewish people, bringing them back to the land of Israel. The direction that we see is clear as day. Folks, I understand. I don't live in a glass tower. I understand not everybody is well-to-do. Not everybody has a lot of means. Folks, there's still many things that we could do, many things that we could perform today. We could start learning the language. Learn the language of Israel, Hebrew. Learn the language. You have kids? Send them here. It's easy for kids to make that transformation. Not easy for older people. Okay, but we have kids. We have grandkids. Make sure, send them. There's so many things that we could do. If we ourselves, God forbid, everyone could really come here. But I'm not trying to belittle the difficulties that involves. It is difficult. For sure, it is difficult. But today, with the internet and possibilities of working, I know plenty of people, dozens of people I know, that they work. They work in Israel, computers, and their jobs are in the States or in Europe, other places. Today, it's much easier on that level. So we could all manage in various ways. We could all make ourselves closer, bring ourselves closer a few steps to the land of Israel. May Hashem have mercy on the Jewish people, and may we see with our own eyes the return of the divine presence. May we see with our own eyes the return of the Jewish people, merciful return of the Jewish people in our days, in our times. Amen.